So we don't have anyone at a distance right now, but they might pop in and join us, which is fine. But again, we're also recording the session so that if you want to come back and watch any of these things, it'll be posted on our portal. So today we're going to talk about some tools to help your students with some of that deep processing, some of the recall, some of the making connections, you know, some of those things we talked about last week. We talked about how to improve memory, some of those strategies and what the research says. Now we're looking at some tools. So I'm going to talk about some visual mapping tools, and then Marilyn is going to talk about the testing tool in Blackboard. So visual mapping just means that you're taking concepts and you're making visual representations of them. So it could be either a mind map or a concept map, and there's not really a whole lot of difference between the two. Really, a mind map is like showing a hierarchy of something, and usually a more visual style, and it's usually just concepts blocked out. And it's usually used for brainstorming, for just kind of making a message to yourself about how you see things. Concept mapping, on the other hand, is sort of like that, but it's not necessarily just a hierarchy. A lot of times they're done in more webs, and they have linking language too. So they'll put a concept up and another concept, but then they'll put in the linking language how one relates to the other, maybe one causes, or is an effect of, or is an example of, or leads to. So in that case, you're really talking about the relationships between concepts. And there is a lot of research that really supports the use of concept mapping as both a learning tool and as an assessment tool. So in order to accurately create a concept map, you really do have to have a deep understanding of the concepts that you're learning about. There are a number of tools available online, free and paid ones. Some of them get pretty spectacular. You can make some amazing stuff, but of course you have to pay for those. So one that is free that I think has a lot of really great features is called Mind Mup. So instead of Mind Map, it's Mind Mup. And this is great because it's a plugin to your Google Drive. So you can actually use it like a Google Doc. It comes up it'll save to your Google Drive, and it's a plugin that you use for your for Google Drive. You can the address that we would go to is mindmup.com.
M-U-P.
Yep, M-I-N-D and then M-U-P. And if you wanted to get started, and if you want to go ahead and install this into your Google Drive while I demonstrate some things to you, have at it. Yes, you do have to give permission to access your Google Drive so that it can save to your Google Drive. This is a pretty popular tool though, so I don't have any safety concerns about it accessing your content. So I just want to play this quick little video here. So there was a lot packed into that short little video, but it kind of gave you an overview of one particular way that you can use this. So they used a theme where that they called productivity, and it uses color coding to kind of show relationships between content. I actually took the content from our talk last week, and I mapped that out in Mind Mup. So we were talking about the role of memory and learning, and then we had those 5 strategies. So we had frequent tests and test-like activities, involving emotions, structuring for space study, steer students into deep processing, and new knowledge on old knowledge. So those were the 5 areas, and from there I branched out a little bit. So for example, let me move this in the corner here. Frequent tests and test-like activities. I put a link here to the testing effect, and I labeled that research. The research that backs up using frequent tests and test-like activities is the testing effect, which is well documented in psychological research. And to define it, the very act of recalling information leads to better retention of information. And I also noted here that it's the most effective study strategy. And I added a resource here called retrievalpractice.org. And I also put a little note in here on the side and linked to it. So you can actually link out to other resources online as well. So I'm going to close that. Remember, we had that nice picture that evoked emotion when we were talking about emotional responses to content and how that can help improve memory. No? Right, well, we'll help you in a minute. So you can add multimedia in here. You can attach documents. There's lots of great things that you can do here. So in addition to you creating documents like this where you can show relationships, this is great to actually assign to students as either a note-taking activity, so they're reading chapter 3, but they need to create a mind map of it or a concept map, and that can be their homework assignment. Or you can even create a blank map and have them fill in, you know, according to a particular hierarchy that you have set as part of an assessment, maybe a quiz or a section on the test. So I just want to show you how to do some basic things in this tool. So to create a new node, and that's what each of these little bubbles are called in mapping, visual mapping, they're called nodes. So to create a new node, there are a number of buttons up here. You can create a root node, which means it's like the highest level of the topic, or the most general term. Or you can create a child node, which means it's a part of whatever that top level node is. Or you can create sibling nodes. So they're on the same level hierarchically. So for example, if I turned this into an outline, this would be the title of the outline. This would be Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3. And then under each of these, you'd have the capital A, capital B, capital C. So you can see that these are pretty hierarchically organized. But you can also do other things in here too. So if I wanted to add another top level node, I can just click this little insert root node button, and I can talk about study strategies. Yeah, let's see. So I'll click on this, and there's a little paint bucket button up here. I can click on that, and I can pick a different color. How about we go for yellow? Is that easier to read? There we go. And I can then put some child nodes under here too. So maybe I have some reading study strategies. Maybe I have some, let's put another child node in here. We'll call this one note-taking. And it automatically kind of adjusts and moves them around, but I can also click and drag them where I want them to go on the screen, and the line automatically spreads out. And if I want to add a description of how these two nodes relate to each other, I can click on this connector line, and then I can label the line. So I'll click on that, and I'll put in a label. So, well, actually, why don't I call this reading comprehension to be more specific. So you can notice I'm just double clicking to activate the node and start typing in there. And as you noticed before, I can click on this little paint bucket to change the colors. So if I want each of these to be a different color, I can do that. I can also move that so I can see that better. I can also change the colors of the lines here too. So you can, use color coding to show visual relationships and hierarchies as well. So in addition to having these connected nodes, I can also have a node out here that might or might not be related. So let's say test taking strategies. And let's make this a lighter color. And then I can click on this study strategies, and I can actually connect it over here using this connector button. And now I can just kind of draw a line from one to the other. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's connected in all these other ways. It's something that's kind of related. So this is really great if you have a very complex topic and you're kind of plotting out on the paper in front of you how all of these concepts are related, but then you kind of throw in, oh, well, this one is also related in some other way. Or you take, instead of putting it in like a tree format, you really kind of spread it out in a web, and then you ask the students to decide to help you figure out, well, how are these two related? They're not connected, but what if we did connect them? What could we put on that line? So it's a way of really looking deeper at content than, linear in a way that we normally do. Yep.
And you mentioned outlining when you showed us what you had set up at first.
Mm-hmm.
Does the Muppy flip to outline?
That's a good question. I think this one might.
Sorry.
That's a good question, because I know some of them do. Yeah, like Inspiration is one you can pay for, and that one does turn it into an outline view. I'm not sure that this one does.
Well, if this one doesn't, know that there are some that you can make this map.
Yep.
And so when you're thinking of students who may not know how to write paragraphs, maybe they can outline, get all of their ideas down and then flip the switch, and it kind of organizes it into an outline for them.
Yep. Yeah, so there are a number of tools. So in addition to adding nodes here, I can also insert a picture node as well. So here I'll put, I can either upload my photos, or I can choose photos from my Google Drive. Or I could even do a Google image search, and this will search for items that are labeled commercial reuse with modification. So it's already done the copyright clearance work for you. So if I'm looking for, let's say, reading, I could find some nice reading photos here. And maybe let's say I'll take this one, and I'll select that. So now that one's entered. And I can even add some text in here, or I can add a note. Oops. There, get that out of the way. So I can add some notes about that particular image. I can add, like I showed you here, you can put a URL in there and link to an external resource. or if I had like maybe a YouTube video that I wanted students to watch about this particular topic. It's a great visual way of showing information. So what I'd like to do is take, about 10 minutes for you to explore Mind Mup on your own, and I'll come around and give you a hand with stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent.
If you could get a picture out this week. Oh, I'm doing it from this, but that's okay.
Let's talk about some math.
I was just thinking.
So if you mapped out like commutative property and additive property, and then you had a line linking between them, what would you say?
For me? Okay, but I'm getting it. So is this how it starts and you just type on it?
Yep. Yep, so you just double click on it and you start typing.
I want to write next square.
Oh, yeah, you can only use keyboard. I don't think so. I think you can only use the ones that you can use keyboard shortcuts for.
Almost. I wonder if I can
Oh,
copy and paste from
that's a good idea. Yeah,
Do I have to do say edit here?
yeah, or you can just double click with your left mouse.
Well, I think that's what I'm
Oh, okay. So I
Okay, cool.
well,
trying to get the outline.
no, it doesn't. It just
That was just next.
yes, it says X2.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
Okay, so I just
There is an undo. So if you do Control C, yeah, or if you do you do this undo.
oh, there it
button
is.
there. What do you want to do?
I mean, can I copy it?
The right one's all scripted, so it knows which tribe.
So I wanted to get a picture of that.
So this is a video. So if it's a video, you just copy the URL for it.
Yeah.
But the picture, you can actually insert a picture. As long as you have it in your Google Drive or it's in, you do a Google search with the licensing, it searches for stuff that you have permission to be able to reuse. Yep, and then it copies it. So it takes any pictures out of your Google. Yeah, double click that. Yeah, so just click on the one that you want to do.
It's not like a text box, I can just grab the corner and drag it.
Yeah, yeah. You can't resize the boxes. They just fit to whatever the text is. Yeah.
You cannot change the boxes, is that what you just said?
Yeah, you can't change the size of them. They automatically adjust to whatever text you want.
I'm gonna move these down.
Yep. Just click and drag them. Oh. There you go. Yeah.
So what makes the line curved?
If it's not like an exact 90-degree angle or something, depends, and again, if they're far away, then sometimes they curve too. Other bubbles next to it. Sometimes it curves when it's away.
And it's that line.
Well, that is to connect nodes, but if you wanted to show hierarchy, then you would use the child.
Where did you get to those pictures?
Yep, so yeah, you can close out of that. And if you add the picture mode, so
Yeah. Yeah.
Try right clicking on it.
How do I write?
Oh, yeah, you actually have, yeah, you have two buttons on here. So that's your left button, that's your right button. So you can, mouse there.
Gee, this was a successful day for say, right?
What?
I said, it's a successful day for you. You found it doesn't right click.
So then we can pull up this menu. Oh, because you're not signed into your Google.
Oh.
Yeah, once you sign in, then you'll be able to get it. So I'll tell you another neat way that I've seen this used, because you can collaborate on these. So you can have your students working in a group, and just like with Google Docs, how they can collaborate on the same document together, they can collaborate on the same concept map together. And you have revision history in here, so you can actually see who has contributed to the mind map, which is pretty cool. Another interesting way of using this, I've seen an instructor start her class with just a shell of a couple nodes, and then have quiet time where the students go up and they start clicking and adding nodes and connections. No one talks. They just put their own ideas up there, and they can't erase anyone's. They can only just add to the map. And you know, they don't always agree with what they put up there, but they just put stuff up there, and then after the quiet time of like 5 minutes of adding to the map, then opening it up for a discussion and say, okay, well, why'd you put that there? And who doesn't agree with how these two things relate? So it's a really great way of generating really deep discussion. And you'll find, too, that the students that normally don't jump into a discussion, the ones who generally need to think and process a little bit more, this is their processing time. So they're more able to participate better in the discussion. So what are some other ideas, ways that you think you could use visual mapping?
I'm having a little bit of a hard time thinking about it for my IT course.
Mhm.
With so many people doing WB.
Yep.
Other than, I kind of like the idea of using it to map out if I have a particularly complex chapter, for example,
Mhm.
that I think they need to think about more than just hear my lecture. That might be a good use of it. But you've already, of course, mentioned that one. But the delayed viewing part makes some of this in real time.
Yep.
Hard.
Yep. Or, you know, it can be asynchronous, where the student creates their own concept map of that difficult chapter, and then they go, or is it share, just like they have in their other Google Docs. They click share, they add your email address, and then you get a notification that so-and-so has shared their map with you, and then you can open it up and see what they've done. And it's a great way of really seeing, like opening up someone's mind and seeing, you know, where they're actually making the right kinds of connections and where they have some misinformation. So it would be really interesting to do it as an assignment.
I think also we could use it like for case studies, like problem solving, brainstorming, like resources or things like that. How mapping a person that just comes in the office.
Yeah. I'm using ethical decision making.
Oh yeah.
And this would be like perfect in terms of, you know, maybe giving them one or two different case studies or a problem, and then looking at what the principles are, and have the link to different licensing sites, you know, having a place where they can actually fill in or answer some questions around what makes the dilemma ethical, and then what are the cost benefits, and having them do like a decision balance sheet, how they go about making the decision, and then making a decision, and then potentially evaluating the decision. And I'm thinking of maybe this is where I think a little video snippet from YouTube, just listening to somebody going through the process.
Yep.
And you were saying that, so you do that, everyone gets the same case. They could go in and say, this is what I would do under this principle, this is what, right?
Yep.
And then would they get to see every student's response too?
It depends on if you gave, it's just like a Google Doc, if you gave the whole class access to the same map, then everyone will be able to see it. But if you have the students copy the map to their own drive and then do their own, you know, nodes in their additions.
Assignment or something.
Yeah, then they would probably
Then they'll
copy
just
it
do
to their
their
own. Yep.
Yeah.
So let me ask this, because I'm trying to do it with another document. If I use, does it have any sort of Excel properties where each student could have a page So they could do it independently,
Mm,
give it back to me, and then I could make the collective where each tab would be each student's.
neat. No,
Okay.
but
That guy, she will let him know that that's the next generation.
I'm doing that with with kind of like a resource network, so to speak, that they have different tabs related to housing, finances, all of that.
Yep.
But I wanted to be able to make sure that everybody,
It's everybody.
right.
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe
but
you have a class project that you've got this.
It's truly a resource.
That's great.
guide.
yeah, yeah. An interesting thing that you could do though is that this canvas is really endless. So you could have one student doing like housing resources and then start another, parent node of childcare resources or whatever. And you can even link to certain agencies that deal with multiple ones, so it's a way of kind of visually laying out rather than separating it by tabs. Here, they'd kind of just be scrolling back and forth and zooming in and out to see those relationships. Yeah.
And can they link to another page? So, because what I'm thinking of in the history class is like if we had the continent of Africa and then the person who is doing Ethiopia. So when they clicked on Ethiopia on the content map, the continent, then they could go specifically to a country. And that way, I kill two birds with one stone in that people still don't know the difference between a country and a continent and a state kind of, kind of thing. They would have that visual representation of where are we talking about in the world.
So you can see what I just did here was I took a node, I clicked on it, and I clicked this attach file, this link button.
Okay.
And since this is embedded in your Google Drive, you can go to your Google Drive and you can search for any one of your files in here, and then you could attach that Google Doc so that when they clicked on it, they can then go and open that Google Doc.
Okay. So that other kind of file
Could be a map. Yes,
map.
it could be a map. Yes, so you can link them that way. Yep.
And how did you save that to Google Drive? Because I'm not sure if I'm in the right place to save what I just got.
As long as you see your name in the top right-hand corner, then you're logged in. If your name's not up there, then you can click sign in and it will log into your Google Drive. You have to give it permission.
But so when I go to Google Docs, where is it located? Is it located in all my apps?
It's in that main folder, unless up here where the title of it is, you can click this folder and you can organize it. So you can actually put it inside another folder. So some really cool uses for this tool. I mentioned the concept last week of we spend so much time getting things into our students' heads that sometimes we forget about how important it is to get things out of your students' heads. And this is a really great way of, particularly for students who don't feel as strong with their verbal skills in writing, this is a great way for them to get their ideas out. So why don't we make a little transition and we'll take a look at Blackboard tests.
And could you log out of your
Certainly.
Chrome so I can get into Chrome? Because I'm assuming that your Firefox is the video connection?
No, Chrome is the video connection.
Oh, okay. Then if
But
you
I
could
can
log out of
log
Firefox,
out
log out
of-
of the one that isn't the video connection.
So
If you would.
let's see. All right, so Chrome, you should be able to jump into your account.
Okay, thank you.
And
Yeah.
It's asking me to pay $2.99. Maybe I'm paying for all you guys. Since you but,
Oh, because you must have a gold feature too. Yeah, close. You must have used a feature that's in there.
fish, what are their premium ones?
Yeah, yeah. So if we just go back to Mind Mup again.
This one here.
Yeah,
Take
just
this
take
out.
that. Well, do you want to save it stuff?
And the-
Yeah, then do some- Oh, what's this thing?
Okay, so you guys have heard me talk in the last couple of presentations where I was giving you the data dump about all the research that has happened, and I think this time I'm going to change it up. And so you folks are all familiar to varying degrees with the Blackboard testing module, and so I figured I would let you kind of drive where we go with this. Okay?
I'm not familiar with the Blackboard testing.
Okay.
That's why I
Well,
said no.
Then to get started, on the bottom left-hand side, your control panel that students don't see, that you as a faculty member see, you have course tools, and you run down all of the course tools, and under that is test surveys and pools. And so you can create a test. I do not suggest creating a survey using Blackboard. There are better tools out there, but if you want a test that you can pull from a pool where you have many more questions so that it randomizes and gives different students different tests. You know, a lot of these companies have test banks out there that you can pull into Blackboard, put in there as a pool, and then you can select test items from those pools. So you have a lot of choices there. So if you're creating a test, you click on test.
I missed what you did originally. You went to tools first?
Okay, I went to course tools
Go to class. Okay.
and test surveys and pools.
Were you under a specific course first, Marilyn?
I'm under my own course just because I have things in there. So I thought,
should go to a class before I do this.
Yeah, you pick it up.
yeah, you
Okay.
go into any of your Blackboard courses.
Catch up. I'm sorry.
So if you're creating a test from scratch, you're going to click on tests, and you see all these false starts with really strange letters in there that I've just copied over. And typically you go to build test, or you can import a test. So if you've got a test you've created in Word, contact me, contact Greg Kanaboris. We have a product called Respondus that can take your Word tests and pull them into Blackboard for you. If you have a company that has a pool of questions, contact me, and I can figure out, you know, every company has a different way that they set up their test banks. We can get that in there for you. So if you want a pool. So notice when you get here, after you've created tests, it has deployed as one of the options. That tells you where in the course you have that particular test located. So I have module quizzes, and I have them at the beginning of a different module. And so obviously I haven't cleaned up module 5 first to put it in 5.1, but it tells you where in your course that is located, which sometimes when you're saying, where did I put my test? As you've, you know, copied your tests over, it's an easy way to find that. So where would you like to go next? Any questions?
So I would like to build a test. Yeah.
Okay, so you click on build a test. You have to give it a name. Name of test. And you can put your description in there. You can put your instructions in there. You hit submit, and you get what's called the test canvas. And see up here, you have a little drop-down menu where it says name of test, where you can change the name of the test.
Oh, right. Just like,
On the left side, you have create questions.
The typical way of doing this is multiple choice, but you see you have many more options than multiple choice. And so it asks you for a question title. Personally, I never put those in. But again, the little asterisk tells you you do need to put a test question in there. So I will put in a question. Okay.
Hotspot.
What?
It says hotspot under create a question. Do you know what that is?
Oh, a hotspot is what you can click on an area of an image. So for example, if you're teaching like a biology course and you've got liver and heart and head and all of these different body organs, that you can tell the student, you know, click on A, and if they click the right place, it'll, you know, they have
Yeah,
accurately answered.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And maths.
On this one also, can we only do what's in Word? Can I do formulas in here?
Yes, there is a formula editor.
See the f of x
Yep.
in the third row?
Yep.
Let's see, fifth button over, launch math formula. And so you've got your little math formulas all there that you can put in.
I'm looking for a square button.
Yeah, and there, notice across the top there are tabs. So you've got lots of different symbols that change.
I think it's on the first one, the first tab.
What are you looking for?
Yeah, so you would, the third button over,
I found it.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, and also you've got those little notices as far as what that symbol is when you hover over it. So once you get your question in there, there are a couple of things to consider. Number answering, do you want to have numbers or not, or do you want to have letters? I tend to use letters. Answer orientation, vertical and horizontal. Do you give partial credit? Show answers in random order. I had somebody contact me the other day about, you know, they're not in the same order that, you know, the person thought they were going to be in. And I went into the test canvas and found that there was a little check mark here. And that's why what the instructor set in this test canvas looked different from the student answer. But it correctly grades, you know, it grades the correct answer, so you don't have to worry about that. So here, you know, you put in your answers. This is answer A. Here's answer B. Here's answer C. Notice you have a minimum of 4 responses.
It's a little different with the math, evidently.
Okay, how's that?
Well, I was in the test editor and I can't figure out how to get out and put it into the question.
Oh, there's a button at the bottom.
Yeah, bottom right-hand side.
I lost it evidently. Okay, I'll try again.
Okay.
So when I've done this in the past, and I'm not sure if it's in this option, but the wording has to be exact.
In the fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank,
And
right.
what happens if people put the order differently than what's in the response? I end up always having to go back and correct. Yeah. So and then of course I get 100 emails freaking out. I thought I got 100, you know, and it's because it doesn't read them. So there's either says exactly or contains.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're looking for, so when it says contains, it's key phrases or words.
Right. So what I've been doing is if I've got like 4 answers, I'll paste all 4 answers in each one of those boxes. So depending on what order,
Oh, good.
Oh,
it doesn't always do it. It doesn't always correct it. But
Well, because you're talking about fill in the blank.
correct. Yeah, I do
Yeah.
a combination of like, true, false, fill in the definitions, and That's the other thing that I found out is that if I am asking somebody to define, if I don't write define right there, they won't know what to do. They'll just see the word like, what do you want to do?
Mhm. Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
every heading has something.
And you can't mix it up in terms of having different sections of the test, for example, where you write some information guiding them, you know, that's general for all of the multiple choice questions, and then, you know, they get 10 multiple choice, and then you have a section where you give them instructions for the short answer. That doesn't happen. So you do have to, you know, you can put that in the instructions, but it is a little clunky that way.
It's allowed me to like fill in the blank or fill in the blanks or something else. I think I wrote define, but that's not one of the options.
Right. Let me just finish this multiple choice up. So you put a little click, you check the radio button here for which answer is correct. So by default, the
How
first,
did you get to that?
I'm a little further down on multiple choice. And if, so whichever one is correct, you, when you set up the test, click on that to set it up. And you can give feedback or not. And you can add categories, so you can, you know, so if you have a pool, you can say, is this an easy question? You can talk about what topic it is. And so you can get really convoluted as far as setting this up. If you hit submit and create another, it will give you the same type of multiple choice, in this instance, question.
Do you have
But-
to set up the multiple choice answers?
Yeah, I have it multiple choice. Now let's go to fill in the blank and look at, so here's what you were talking about, Guy, with regard to the answers: exact match, contains, or pattern match. Not too sure about pattern match.
I'm not either.
I just want to say, I tried fill in the blank on 2 or 3 times, and because I had to keep going, if they capitalized it, didn't, you know, it had to be exact, it had to be exact.
Mhm.
And I spent a lot of time going back to it.
Sometimes it's just easier to do a short answer
I switched to
Yeah.
short answer.
And
and then manually grade those questions.
here's the number of answers, you know, where you'd mentioned, Guy, that you can put in a number of different items. You know, that's why one of the things here under create question, they have essay question. Personally, I don't use the Blackboard tool to do essays. If I'm going to do an essay, I create an assignment submission. You know, it's just much easier.
So may I ask, if I'm setting up a question and it's all mathematical formulas that I want them to answer,
Mhm.
and I don't like multiple choice or true false, I just want them to answer, how do you set that up?
Yep, that would be either the calculated formula or calculated numeric.
Okay, all right, let's look at calculated formula. Here's your question. Here's your answer formula that you put in here.
Well, my answer would be a number.
Right?
Or 2
Yeah.
numbers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So what did you do to start?
Yeah, so
Like,
I
that's
went-
not gonna work.
I went to create question and create calculated formula.
oh, you're on edit essay.
So
The other thing that I want to point out here is question settings. You can go in here and say that you want to be able to add images, and there are a number of different options that you can kind of globally set throughout a test.
Disrespectful that I was talking, actually, so I didn't see how you got there.
Oh.
On that.
That would be here on the right-hand side, the question settings. And if you don't want to randomize your questions and you want to reorder them, here's the keyboard reordering on the right just to the right of the settings, which makes it nice to slide those up and down, because if you get a test and you're trying to slide those, it's really confusing. Reusing questions, that's where you go to if you're pulling items from the pool. And uploading questions, that's when you're browsing for a file.
Is that when you would use the, like, we've already created it in Word?
Well, and actually contact us, yeah. And so you need to go through this program called Respondus. And so either Greg or I can do that.
Yeah, so it's an application we have where we just open your Word document. As long as you formatted your Word document correctly, then we can just import it right into Blackboard. But you have to format, like you have to, can't use any spacing. You have to have, you know, a period space answer, and you have to put an asterisk next to the one. So let us know if you want to do that, because we'll show you the formatting.
Okay. I think we did that one time.
The other thing you'll note here is by default it'll put 10 points for everything, and so one of the things you might want to do is either select, say all your multiple choice items are worth 5 points apiece. You would click on all of the multiple choice, or you can select by the question type. So you would select all multiple choice, click all, it'll select all, put a little check mark, and then say update points, and say 5 and update, and notice that changed it to 5. So you can easily go through your test and, you know, get it up to 100 points without too much pain.
And you can, if you didn't do all, you could make some worth 5, some worth 2.
Exactly. And so when I say all, first if I set the question type, if I say, well, here it's only multiple choice, but if I say all the fill in the blanks, and so it's select all fill in the blanks, then it's just going to do the fill in the blanks and put the check mark in those. Or if you do all of them, you know, if you don't hit question type, it'll select all of them.
So if I've got a question with multiple responses, like 5, then if they're worth 5, I can go to the right and click on points and individually submit. That total is 25.
Right.
And can you show that?
No.
Good. Can you show that? Remember when you go to responses?
Over here?
Yeah, and click on that.
Yeah, you don't have to.
And then that's how you
Just
get
have to cancel it out to the,
you
Kansas.
can
Right.
make it to eliminate one more.
No, the stuff that she's showing is on Kansas page. Should be Kansas.
But you have to do those individually.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you've done all and that's only one you want to change, that's the way to do it.
That's right.
Question.
Yeah,
Could you
it's
look
done.
at, where am I? Matching.
Oh,
I've never been able to figure out.
How to create a question matching?
Matching.
Is that one of those things?
Okay, yeah, you put your pairs of answers in here. Actually, if you wouldn't mind, if you have individual questions, feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to, you know, help you individually with this part. I do want to go over and show you what the results look like. And so if you go into the Grade Center, there's an area that I really want everybody to know about. And so if I go into Quiz 1 here, if you have a student whose test, you know, they say, I didn't complete the test and I need for it to be reset. Anybody ever get that? All the time. Okay, so if I go to, I click on the drop-down menu for their individual quiz, and I go to their attempt, right up here in the top left-hand side, it has test information. If I click on the test information, one of the first things, okay, personally, I never, ever, ever clear their attempt. Well, never say never. If they haven't really started it and I see it was like 1 second, then I'll do that. But one of the things I can do is find out how long they took. Now, here's somebody who took 7 minutes out of 2 hours. Okay, I click on the access log. I see how long it took for them to answer that. As I said, I never clear the attempt, but I go down and I see what answer did they give. And for somebody who says that they need their test reset, I'll see, you know, if they gave no answer. And so if I'm seeing, yes, after a particular point, none of those questions were answered, then I will go back out of here. I'll exit this. And instead of going to the attempt at the bottom of the drop-down menu, I'll go to View Grade Details, and I'll say Ignore Attempt. And when I say ignore attempt, it will allow them to take that test again. That way, I can see if the test questions they did answer are the same as on the first version, are the same as on the second version. In other words, remember, I used to teach middle school, so I know every trick in the book as far as, you know, oh, gee, you know, the test quit out on me, my electricity, whatever, or I was away from my computer too long. And so did they look at the test to find out what the test questions were? Contact you and say that I had a problem and, you know, they were basically looking up the answers. So personally, I would always check that test information, not clear the attempt, but ignore the attempt. If you have essays, one of the things that you can do, whoops, wrong one. One of the things that you can do for an essay is go to View the Grade Details, and here it allows you to do an additional attempt. So that way you can do a compare contrast. What's the first version look like? What's the second version look like?
So if you do the exempt test, can you then you see the original two?
Don't do an exempt test. Exempt test means.
I don't mean exempt, I meant the other.
Okay, well, let me just mention exempt because I have had people exempt tests. Exempt test means don't count this test in with the student's grade. So if you do ignore
is what I meant.
If you do ignore attempt, it will grade the it will grade the last version, basically.
So how do you compare to see?
Oh, when you go into, okay. So when you go into this drop-down menu, it'll have 2 attempts there.
Okay.
And actually, when you're in the grade center, okay, so if I go into the grade center for this individual, know that you can scroll back and forth. For this individual, it'll say attempt 1 of 2, and then when you scroll forward, you go to attempt 2. So, but this is like so scratching the surface that I invite you to, you know,
Yes,
contact us.
Contact us with all of your testing questions, because there are so many.
Yes, Blackboard gets very convoluted, and especially when you want to set up your grade center too. Please feel free to contact us. It's very important that you do so. I had somebody last year lose the final exam. Just, you know, figured, oh, I'll try this on my own, and lost all the finals, deleted them. So you want to be careful, you know, contact first.
Yes. So thank